Hey, welcome back to the lecture. So in this lecture, let's explore about C integer data types, their storage sizes and value ranges. So now remember that signed char data type consumes 1 byte of memory and its range is -128 to 127. So strictly speaking, a variable of type signed char uses 1 byte of memory and it can hold the value in between -28 to 127. So a variable of type unsigned char also consumes 1 byte of memory. So, and its range is 0 to 255. That means that variable can store the value between 0 to 255. And the size of the short int type variable is 2 bytes, and this is the range. And unsigned short is also 2 bytes, so int consumes 4 bytes actually, and unsigned int also 4 bytes. Long consumes 8 bytes, and long consumes 8 bytes. So what is the meaning of that memory size table? For example, let's consider GCC compiler. So the compiler will generate the code to allocate 64 bits for each long variable. So now let's move forward. C standard doesn't talk about these memory sizes. So these memory sizes are fixed by the compiler designer. For example, on some compilers, a variable of type int may consume 2 bytes, and on some compilers, the size may be 4 bytes. Now the same is true for long. Some compilers consider size of the long as 4 bytes and some compilers consider it as 8 bytes. This all depends on the compiler. So everything depends upon the way compiler is designed. For example, there is one compiler called XC8. So XC8 is a cross compiler which is used to generate code for PIC 8-bit microcontrollers. And I got this table from the reference manual of that compiler. So in order to know the memory size of different data types, you should consult a reference manual of the compiler. So for every compiler, the designer will give the reference manual. And here you can see that the size of the int is actually 2 bytes, right? 16 bits. And size of the long is, you can see that it is 32 bits or 4 bytes. And this compiler also includes some non-standard data types such as short, long, and other things. So short, long is actually 24 bit. So this is not actually from the C standard. It may be a customization added by the compiler designers of XC8, which is designed by Microchip. So now ARMCC is another cross compiler developed by ARM for 32-bit ARM-based microcontrollers. And this is actually not an open source compiler. And this is from the documentation of ARMCC. And here you can see that char is again 1 byte, short is 2 bytes, that's correct. And int is actually 4 bytes here. And long is 4 bytes, and long is 8 bytes. So why I'm showing all these tables is because just don't take memory sizes for granted for different data types. You have to refer to the reference manual of the compiler. So there are some points I would like to mention. So remember that C standard does not fix the storage sizes of different data types. It only talks about minimum and maximum values. For example, C standard says the minimum storage size of a long type variable is 32 bits and the max is 64 bits. So it talks in terms of max and min. So exact size of the long type variable depends on the compiler design. Some compilers fix 32-bit storage size for long type variables and some compilers fix 64 bits. Same is true for int data type. Some compilers fix 16 bits storage size for int type variables and some compilers fix 32 bits. So this all depends on the compilers. So these data types will always be fixed size irrespective of the compilers. Short is always 2 bytes, char is always 1 byte, and long is always 8 bytes. So that is guaranteed. Whether you are using cross compiler for embedded systems or non cross compiler, it doesn't matter. Short is always 2 bytes and char is always 1 byte. So in the next lecture, let's understand integer data type one by one, and let's start with char. And I'll see you in the next lecture.